Welcome back. Sorry, eating. This is a fun video. Not for the faint of heart, so to speak. Getting situated. It's a cause to celebrate. I don't want to allude to anything yet, but I probably just walked right by it. So, I have a DJI Neo. It's what we call the controversial flying device, drone type thing. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's got its place in this world, just like everything else. I was going to make an analogy, and I decided not to. But I think it's something that, well, let's back up a little bit. In the beginning of when this was coming out, I thought it'd be a great idea to get. And they're going to ask me, why, Chris? Small, lightweight, don't have to register it, don't have to fall for all those BS rules that are being thrown in our face. It's basically, it looked like a mini Avata, which is my absolute favorite flyer. And you can take it places you can't take other things. The smaller they go, the cooler the gaps, so on and so forth. New transmission system. And like everything else, I don't leave anything alone. If you watched my past video, that was going to be an ongoing as things progress with the Neo. If it's a update, if they get to change, what I want is 4K 60, the ability to change the sharpness in the app, because the night and day difference between flying at FPV, when you change that sharpness to the way that the fucking color and contrast and all that shit's baked into it. And I had a lot of footage from an adventure that we went on that I just scrapped because I didn't like it. I had it follow us. F and Chet and I, we went on an adventure and went to a place called Scott's Tower. And instead of walking it, we had our scooters, our electric scooters, and we had the Neo follow us all the way up. And it was amazing and fun. And I had to do a lot of work to the footage to get it to where it was sort of okay. And then my ND filters ended up coming in later that day, which kind of defeated the purpose. I wanted them beforehand. But I just took my first flight. This, I guess I could add this in. I flew it with the ND filter for the first time. The first flight I flew today was before I modified. I did have these. These are God knows what prop. Basically a stock-looking prop, just blue. Wanted it to stand out a little bit. Not a horrible color, and I'll save them as backups. But I wanted something different. And I tried before, and I failed, and I literally I tried to do this modification the day I got it to be one of the first ones, and then it failed, and now there are other people out there doing the prop mod, or swapping your motors, and I'm thinking about doing that too. But I took one of my favorite props that came from my Happy Model Sin 8, 2-inch D something something, whatever the hell they are. And I wanted to use these. It's a ducted prop. It changes sound a little bit compared to these. If we're going by that high-pitched sound, they're still kind of like a bullnose end. And from every other video you could watch out there, you know, if the prop goes to a normal point like you'd find on a freestyle drone, they're quieter. And they're quieter because of having that extra. The way that the wind, as they're spinning and the wind is being pushed to the end of the prop. Science stuff I don't understand, but they're quieter. But I have run these on the Sin 8 and some other things, and they're quiet. The tone isn't horrible. You can still hear it, yes, and I want to hear it while I'm flying around. Helps me to situate where I am, especially back in the day with analog, where you don't have that little floating H in your screen. So being able to hear it helps. I hate when people say, I can hear my quad, it's annoying. Well, if you're flying with any chance of anybody else being around, at least they'll be aware of it before it smacks them in the face. But because people fly in dumb places and fly too fast and do all this other shit where they shouldn't, but at least people can hear it. I'm not going to get on that rant. But there is a trick to these getting to fit. And again, other people have done it, kind of pissed, dropped the ball. So as you can see, there is a little channel inside there that drops basically halfway down the prop, and then the screw drops down, and you get the little dinky end poking out. And this is another video I canceled out and didn't decide to upload because I thought this was neat, that they have a little chamfer, basically a rail that this sits down on the motor, because the motor only has one bar that runs across it, and these little pieces here help to lock it down so it doesn't want to wiggle. Let's say one of your prop screws was loose or whatnot, it's going to still stay while it's spinning. It's not going to spin off. And this would be cool design done to a lot of the smaller quads where it's just push on prop. With this having that little extra on the side, and if it only had one bar, yeah, I'm flicking the world off. It would prevent the prop from wanting to spin off in high torque situations. But, so, after ruining two or three props, thankfully I had some, I was able to come up with the solution that was needed to get it to work. The end result is this. I just literally came in from flying after I found my phone, and I did not fly it nice. Usually when you do a modification, you fly it nice to make sure you're not going to have any problem. I made sure all the props were screwed down tight, and the huge problem with this modification, if you were not handy, is the tolerances of how far that screw can stick out versus the bigger part of the hole up here that you got to make so it kind of slides down and then meets the smaller hole, and that's what seeds the screw. Like I said, there's only one bar that runs across the top of the bell of the motor, and the screw holes aren't even flat. It's kind of bows up around the edges of it. So you also have to make sure, I had to kind of very lightly, I didn't do it to this one, soften the bottom side of the hole so that dropped in, also kind of holding it in place. But I had to go so tiny. I don't have my Dremel. My Dremel shit the bed, and the one that I ordered, I wish I'd throw them under the bus, but I'm not going to. I ordered something that had great reviews, which were probably all fake on Amazon, and the Dremel had no power. I was trying to work on my little 3D print keychain things I'm going to leave at locations, and the full charge battery, first time I went into the back to open up the hole, it literally stopped. Didn't have enough oomph, so that's it. It's on its way out the door. But it would have been nice to have for this. It would have given me a bit more precision for getting the holes versus using the old school 20-year-old drill, and that's probably why I ruined these props, because I went down too far. And again, I don't have the screws out, which I should, but it's a fat little dinky screw, and 90% of it, there are no threads, and then there's just a tiny little bit on the bottom. And if you go too far with the holes, then you see that flat part that has no thread. And what that means is that this doesn't lock down all the way, and it wiggles back and forth. It's frustrating, but I kept at it. I wanted to do this, and I'm glad I did. I'm going to pop up the flight footage after I go upstairs and eat like an adult, which I should have done before I did this video, but it flew phenomenal. I like the tone a little bit better. It's not as high pitch. It had plenty of response. Again, this is not meant to freestyle, and I am not anything you would call as a freestyle pilot. I can fly acro or M mode, no problem. Through gaps, trees, and some, I like my flips and my rolls. This thing rolls better. I mean, flips forward, backwards better than it wants to do a roll. It gets a little wonky depending on what you're doing. But I put it through my normal test of gaps, lines, and stuff like that during sunset, and it looked great. And like I said, I had the ND filter on there. I left it on auto settings just so I could get up in the air and use what sunlight I had left. And I immediately noticed I did not have as much, and it's only an ND8. I didn't have as much blowout from the sun. The colors were way more rich, and that's just through the goggles. It looked super badass. I may put an edit together just to show. I don't know if you guys want that. Put it in the comments. I kind of stopped ripping around the yard just because it's the same thing, but it's a good stomping ground because it's one of the most flown places for me, from whoops to back in the day freestyle 5-inch quads, and very comfortable with lines and know what to expect from a quad when I do certain things. So it's a very good stomping ground, and the swing set that I love to fly through this is the last year it's going to be here, so I'm taking it down hopefully soon, because the kids are getting older. It was one of my favorite things to fly through, but I'm going to gut it. So I used parts of that today to rip around, and I was very confident with how this responded. Took me a little while in the beginning to get used to the shorter sticks, and I don't want to add stick lifters or higher sticks to this because of the way it fits into the bag and all that. I find it easier to just have a gimbal guard, which is MIA. My head's doing this, but the camera's not. It would have been more. It's probably in the bag. So I got a green one for this that I printed. That's like that blue one there. And it works perfect, fits in the bag. Just faster up in the air. That's the idea. But it took me a little while to get used to the shorter sticks and finding the right expo and center stick sensitivity. Very, very happy with it. Very, very happy. If you're looking for mild acro but want those aggressive lines and be able to, drop down fast and do stuff like that, it's capable and it does it well. I am not a hardcore freestyle pilot, but it did what needed to be done when I was flying it. So it fits my flight style. And if you're new to the channel, again, it's not freestyle here anymore. That was the kick in the beginning, but then I found my niche with the cinematic FPV. I want to categorize a whole new flying style. And it's like cinematic FPV, but it's just a different touch to the way that you move the quad. And I'd like to call it contemporary FPV. And I've talked about it before, and if you're curious, I'll do another video on it again. I put out a challenge called the Contemporary FPV Challenge a few years ago, which I thought was awesome. It's basically you're taking your machinery, you're taking the sticks, and then you're taking the emotion that you are into the edit and then blending them together. And again, it's different than cinematic FPV. You will evoke emotion through the way that you edit, but this is different to me. And I think which is really cool for making that happen is bring music with you, bring one earbud or whatever, and then fly to a song. Immediately you start changing how you start doing things because the rhythm of the body, the way our brains work, when you hear certain patterns and stuff like that, you want to fly to it. And it's a fun thing. So I may, if I can get enough participation, because the YouTube world has changed where I used to do challenges and stuff like that all the time, and I just don't see the participation anymore. Last year was kind of the last. We do a fall foliage challenge where I challenge you to fly however you fly, any style you want to fly to the foliage in your area, make an edit, and I had a really kick-ass surprise award for last year, and I didn't get any response. And I look at F and Chet, and I'm like, this is our favorite thing to do. You get up into the trees, you're like 70 feet up, and you're just picking lines through the golden colors of the trees. You see squirrels, like I just did earlier, the sunshine, and then you edit it. That's our magic right there. But I didn't see any of that last year, so I just kind of, and again, I'm not a social media guy. I get weary and frustrated because you're putting yourself out there, and that's not something I like to do. And then when you get a little bit of negativity or lack of participation, it just pushes me away. And that happens with a lot of videos. I'll sit down here, I'll make a video like I did about these props. I'll watch it back and I'm like, well, someone's going to say this or someone's not going to like that. And then I literally erase the edit, which took an hour or however long it took to make the video. And I'm just like, I don't want to deal with the stupid comments, but whatever. So the whole point was supposed to be this. It can be done. You can't do a traditional. I bought these props. I think these are Hulkies. I bought these originally as that first prop I was going to put on here, and they're just a C hair longer, so you'd have to trim them. So you'd have to have a whole separate setup to trim these down to be a perfect fit without scraping. So I was like, you know what? It was just meant not to be. So I opted out of those, and then I was actually going to run. I probably threw them away. I was actually going to try these, and I may get another set. I got these for a different build that are super quiet. And for my style flying, I think it might be cool. Because once you get going, it's super efficient. But I fucked up on the first one, and when I was making the whole situation the way I wanted it, I started at the bottom instead of the top, which ruined one of them. So I may go back and try these again. We'll see. In the pursuit of doing this stuff so somebody else doesn't have to, and then figuring out what works and doesn't work. But again, what works for me may not work for you. That's why I just put it all out there. And I think that's it. If there are any questions, Basic tools you would need would be a Dremel with a tiny step down bit. Do I have it still here? You can use a standard drill bit, and that's what I ended up going with. And then I have these for my Dremel. That's just basically a tiny little sander, which was basically the perfect size. So one of the failed attempts was it just went in, and then I used the beveled edge here to open up as far as I wanted to, and I didn't get it right. But then I used these for hand to kind of wiggle in the bottom to open up so it would fit around those little holes, around the screw holes on that thing. But these would work good also. And then whatever else you come up with. And again, little keychains I'm going to start leaving behind. I wish I could make little tiny props for these. And then this is the first batch I have of the keychain. The second one's actually going to say find me on YouTube because I don't do social media. And then it's going to be tough, but I might hide this guy somewhere, the golden acorn. And then if somebody finds me on YouTube and shows me this, I'll give you something cool. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. That's my rant. Let me know what you think of these cool props, and then we'll see you on the next one.